Here's a third biological law of nature. Over 100 years ago, Ernst Haeckel coined the phrase ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, meaning that the development of an embryo mirrors the evolutionary history of the species. From conception, when the egg is fertilized by sperm, each human embryo undergoes a process that condenses hundreds of millions of years of evolution into just 9 months of gestation. When we observe embryonic development, we are essentially looking at a timeline of human evolutionary history, which is really fascinating. This suggests that some of our ancestors resembled simple ring like or worm like creatures, similar to the sea anemones we see today. To truly comprehend Germanische Heilkunde, it's crucial to have a foundational understanding of brain anatomy. While we start with conventional medicine's general view of the brain, Dr. Hammer's interpretation introduces some key differences. If you're already familiar with traditional brain anatomy, there will be a need to adjust your knowledge slightly to align with Germanische Heilkunde's unique perspective. In general anatomy, the brain consists of several key areas: the frontal lobe, located in the forehead area, the occipital lobe at the back, the temporal lobe, and the brain stem. This is the Germanische Heilkunde or GH brain. We will focus on three important sections of the brain: the brain stem, the oldest brain with the midbrain, the cerebellum, right here, referred to as the old brain. These regions evolved first and controlled basic survival functions, similar to the so called reptilian brain. The newer parts of the brain that developed later are the cerebral cortex and the cerebral medulla and diencephalon. The cerebral medulla is not commonly referenced in conventional medicine, but it plays a crucial role. It becomes so much easier to categorize. Dr. Hammer categorized all organs based on their tissue types, which correspond to the three germ layers from embryonic development. This organization allowed him to develop a systematic approach to understanding different diseases. The three columns, each represented by different colors, correspond to the germ layers. The yellow column represents conflicts affecting glandular tissues from the endoderm layer. The orange column represents the mesoderm, divided into conflicts of gland like tissues and connective tissues. The red column represents the ectoderm, which includes conflicts of the squamous epithelium and functional failures. Each type of tissue correlates with specific parts of the brain. The oldest brain, or the endoderm, are glandular tissues connected to the brainstem and the midbrain. Gland like tissues correlate with the cerebellum, and connective tissues correspond to the cerebral medulla. This makes up the orange zone. And the red zone, or the squamous epithelium and functional losses, are linked to the cerebral cortex, the youngest brain. This brain tissue mapping forms the basis of how disease manifests in specific organs based on conflicts. Here we look at the primordial sea and glandular tissue. Looking at medicine from an evolutionary perspective helps explain the biological purpose behind certain special programs. Our early ancestors lived in the primordial sea and had simple organs made of glandular tissue with a brainstem. Their survival revolved around eating and reproducing, and their main conflict was related to food. For instance, if an ancestor struggled to catch food, the brainstem would activate a response, increasing thyroid function to boost speed, linked to hyperthyroidism. Once a conflict was resolved when the food was caught, the excess thyroid cells would break down. Similarly, if a piece of food got stuck in their intestines, the body would respond by multiplying intestinal cells, leading to intestinal cancer to create more digestive juices. Once the food passed, the extra cells would be broken down by microbes during the healing phase. In the active phase of glandular tissue, there is always cell proliferation, which leads to an increase in function. The biological purpose is clear. During the conflict active phase, the body boosts digestive juices to aid in better digestion or absorption of food. or it produces more mucus to help the morsel pass smoothly. If the underlying morsel conflict isn't resolved and only the physical symptoms, such as intestinal cancer, is removed, the cancer will likely return. Mother Nature operates on natural laws, and the body's goal is to resolve the root cause, not just a symptom. The paradigm shift in medicine is about where to focus therapy. Should it address only the symptom or the actual cause? The conflict or root cause must be addressed to achieve true healing. During the healing phase, the glandular tissue undergoes degradation, often through the help of fungi and bacteria. Similar to how an apple rots and decays, this process is inherited from our ancestors and is tied to the brainstem, the oldest part of our brain responsible for these biological programs. As our ancestors left at sea and adapted to life on land, they developed additional protective organs, like the peritoneum, pleura, and skin layers. These organs required new control systems, leading to the development of the cerebellum, or small brain. Conflicts tied to these tissues often revolve around a violation of integrity, such as an attack or defilement. For example, feeling insulted or dirtied may trigger a response in the cerebellum, where the humor focus appears in the dermis relay. This results in cell proliferation or thickening of the skin, leading to conditions like melanoma as a protective response. Once a conflict is resolved, the melanoma is broken down by fungal bacteria during the healing phase. Similarly, mammary glands evolved from sweat glands in the dermis. If a mother experiences a conflict related to worry for her child, the cerebellum triggers an increase in mammary gland cells to boost milk production, improving the child's chance of survival. Once a child recovers, cell division stops and the excess cells are broken down by fungal bacteria during the healing phase, often causing night sweats. Gland like tissue goes through cell plus during conflict active phase and cell minus during the healing phase. Here, handedness is considered. An individual is decided as right or left handed even with the first cell division. In identical twins, one is always right handed and the other is left handed. With right handers, the left side is mother child and the right side is father and everyone else. And it is the opposite for left handers. With right handers, the left side is related to mother or child conflicts, and the right side is related to conflicts around the father and everyone else. And it is the opposite for left handers. To determine this, we usually do the clap test and see what is the leading hand, which is usually the one on top. But some people clap from below, so be extra attentive. It can be confusing too because I write with my right hand, but I'm actually left handed biologically. And there are actually certain ways that we can confirm your handedness through finding out what your conflicts are and then seeing if it's the left side or the right side that responds. For example, for myself, I have no mother and I have no children. And all of my conflicts that happen are on the left side. So that means I am left handed because my mother child side would be on my right side, but it never gets affected. This is one of the clever ways that we can actually confirm whether we're right or left handed. It's easier for me because the right side or the opposite side of my handedness, which pertains to mother and child, are completely free. And now I can confirm that all of my conflicts happen with everyone who is not my mother nor my child. It's pretty clever, actually. Take some time to find out which one you are. Usually, only lefties are ambidextrous. If sometimes you use scissors with your left hand, but you do sports with your right hand, only left-handers are ambidextrous. We are in the new mesoderm where handedness is definitely considered. As our ancestors evolved, they developed a musculoskeletal system made up of bones, muscles, tendons, and cartilage. This system is controlled by the cerebral medulla, which is also tied to our sense of self esteem and performance and abilities. A healthy self esteem supports an upright posture, while low self esteem can lead to issues in the musculoskeletal system, such as scoliosis, lumbago, bone cancer, or even anemia. According to the third biological law of nature, during the conflict active phase, the cerebral medulla experiences cell loss, called necrosis in connective tissues and osteolysis in bones. If a self devaluation conflict is not resolved, these areas weaken until bones may fracture or tendons tear. In nature, this would make one vulnerable to predators. However, once the conflict is resolved, the healing phase begins. Bacteria play a key role in replenishing the damaged areas, causing temporary swelling. By the end of healing, the swelling subsides, but the affected bone or tendon remains thicker and stronger than before, similar to how a healed fracture site becomes permanently reinforced. This functional reinforcement remains for life, which is why Dr. Hammer referred to this connective tissue group as a deluxe group. Mother Nature steps in during healing, providing lasting strength once the process is complete. Here in the new mesoderm, it goes through cell minus during the conflict active phase and cell plus during the healing phase. And now we come to the cerebral cortex and the ectoderm layer, the newest brain. Here, handedness is considered, but not for mother child or partner side, but rather for conflict scaling and landing on feminine or masculine hemisphere. The cerebral cortex is our youngest and most complex part of the brain. It governs social interactions and manages conflicts related to separation and territorial disputes. It also controls the squamous epithelium and related functional losses. In nature, territorial conflicts establish biological hierarchies where the strongest, like the alpha wolf, has the right to pass on his genes. For wolves, survival depends on organizing into packs with clear leadership structures. A wolf without a pack struggles to survive. In a classic territorial fight, the stronger wolf defeats the weaker one, who then loses his territory. This loss triggers a Hummer focus in the brain relay of the coronary arteries, leading to the ulceration of the squamous epithelium. This expands the arteries, allowing more blood flow to strengthen the heart muscle. The biological purpose of this process is to enhance the heart's function during the conflict active phase. If the weaker wolf, despite his strengthened heart, fails to reclaim his territory, he may resign and submit. In this state, the conflict is not fully resolved but remains active at a lower intensity without succumbing to exhaustion. However, this prolonged conflict alters the weaker male's biology, diminishing his territorial drive and libido, ultimately feminizing him. Among humans, such resignation may lead to chronic conflict, often occurring after 6 months. A conflict lasting beyond 9 months should not be resolved abruptly, as the resulting crisis could cause a heart attack. Contrary to conventional medical belief, a heart attack is not due to blocked arteries, but rather the interruption of signals from the brain to the heart muscle during the crisis, causing the heart to stop. Thus, a heart attack is a brain related symptom, not a vascular one. Natural bypasses form shortly after any actual vessel blockage, making bypass surgery unnecessary in many cases. Again, this is part of Germanische Heilkunde and not intended to be used as medical advice. In the ectoderm, you'll also see the sensory cortices in the cerebral cortex. As you can imagine, our senses are needed to interact with others and also to sense danger or safety as we relate, communicate, and engage territory with others. There are functional losses that are all controlled by the cerebral cortex, and they occur during the conflict active phase, such as the loss of the sense of smell. None of these functional failures make cell proliferation or cell loss, which is why there is never any inflammation during the healing phase. The loss of function is about the nerves and nerves that no longer divide after birth. The biological sense of these functional losses is also again immediately in the conflict active phase. Mother Nature helps evenly and immediately with functional loss. Mother Nature can do everything. With a motor conflict of not being able to escape comes a paralysis of the leg musculature. This is nothing but the known feigning of death reflex. What does the hair that cannot escape do? It plays dead. The epileptoid crisis, controlled by the sensory, postsensory, or premotor cortex, often involve disrupted circulation, dizziness, brief moments of consciousness disturbance, or complete loss of consciousness, such as fainting. The severity of these symptoms depends on the intensity of the underlying conflict. A common accompanying symptom is a drop in blood sugar due to the brain cell's excessive consumption of glucose, similar to hypoglycemia seen in relation to pancreatic islet cells. This can be too much for you, but here's a useful chart to summarize the third biological law of nature. It isn't necessary to memorize all of these, as we have free resources like learninggnm.com to know about them. What's useful is to know when a tumor grows. Am I conflict active or am I in healing? If it's yellow or orange striped or orange group, you are conflict active. If it's red or orange, or if you are in healing. It's just a good way to know that this law, again, is reproducible and predictable. And now let's take a look at the healing phase and what healing means and who does the healing. The fourth biological law of nature outlines the role of microbes in healing, showing their crucial role as natural surgeons. Unlike traditional surgery, where damage to nerves can cause complications like incontinence or impotence, microbes degrade inactive tumors, such as in prostate cancer, for example, without harming surrounding tissues or nerves. This means a man can recover without these side effects. Microbes, including fungi and bacteria, work only during the vagotonic healing phase and stay within their designated tissue boundaries, never attacking, in air quotes, other germ layers. In the conflict active phase, old brain controlled organs develop tumors to help resolve the conflict. But once the conflict is resolved, these tumors become unnecessary and stop dividing. At this point, microbes, under the brain's command, break down the tumor in a tuberculous or necrotizing manner, similar to how an apple rots. A key symptom during this process is night sweats, a sign of microbial activity and successful conflict resolution. For different tissues, the brainstem controlled glandular tissues involve fungi and fungal bacteria, also called mycobacteria, and break down unneeded tissue. Cerebellar glandular tissues or gland like tissues are also managed by fungal bacteria. Cerebral medulla controlled connective tissues rely on bacteria to replenish the necrosis and osteolysis from the active phase. The healing of squamous epithelium occurs with swelling and inflammation, but without microbes. Here we say that viruses do not exist, but if they do exist, they will play a vital role in the healing phase. It's important to note that microbes are only activated by the brain. And here we come to the fifth biological law of nature, and I always start this slide with a question. Do you know how much you love your children? That's how much nature loves you and them. Nature doesn't want us to die. Nature is all about survival. So Mother Nature wants us to be stronger and more resilient and flexible. And once you know Germanische Heilkunde, you are immediately 80% better. Why? Because you stop fearing the functions of your body and start understanding who you are and why you are the way you are. Then you can use this information to become a robust human being, anti-fragile and unafraid to face the unknown, equipped with the knowledge needed to face life's storms. Here is a summary of the 5 biological laws of nature, which is really very clever. Number one is the iron rule of Cancer. Two phases. Every significant biological special program operates in 2 distinct phases, but only if the conflict is successfully resolved. Three germ layers, the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. For healing. Microbes don't cause disease, but they're there for healing. They instead play a vital role during the healing phase. 5. Quintessence. The quintessence. The law of understanding that every so called disease is part of a developmentally understandable, senseful, biological special program of nature. There is no such thing as malignant and no such thing as metastases. Here are some of my success stories using GH and biohacking alongside their medical and health programs. Allowing them to see it through this lens removes fear and puts them in a place of understanding, looking at their body as their teammate rather than their enemy. If you got affected, check cold hands and feet. You can downgrade the conflict load immediately using EFT, havening, whole brain posture, breathwork, or mindset techniques to enter the wedge. Listen to my Trident Mention and my talk on this, or any 432 hertz music. If you're sad, try to do more active play. If you're manic, try more soothing activities. Talk to your organs. They're always listening. Tell them, all organs, I am okay. You are sending conscious afferent signals from the brain to the organs through the vagus nerve. Got symptoms? That's your healing phase. Remember the 5 biological laws of nature, especially number 1 and number 5. Get rid of your fear of death and disease. Follow the body. If you're fatigued, sleep for 20 hours. Don't fight it. Support the body's energy system with biohacks, with proper food, supplementation, hydration, going out in the sun, and spending time in the ocean or in the forest. What we know, however, the true way to prevent disease is to take action at the level that it started, psyche, brain, organ. To have this level of awareness and to have felt awareness, to know that I have cold hands and feet, I'm conflict active. What can I do to downgrade it right now? Find a biological solution. The psyche is a key to immunity in air quotes. We need to be antifragile and triggerless. Once we understand how the brain triggers these programs, to a certain extent, we can work around them. We can use metacognition and process our thinking and find biological solutions. Look at perception versus reality and take actionable steps to downgrade the charge of the psyche. It is a lot of work, but it is the greatest work you'll ever do. Let's reverse engineer the definition of a biological conflict. Remember, the condition is acute and highly dramatic, unexpected. It came from left field. I feel isolated and caught off guard or caught on the wrong foot. You can reverse engineer it by seeking the company of others immediately. Then you can cancel out the isolated component. You can seek help, seek advice, or just have somebody to talk to. This will help downgrade the conflict. You immediately don't feel isolated. And this person, this friend, might be able to help you so you're no longer caught on the wrong foot. Nothing can be done about acute and unexpected anymore because it already happened. But you can take action to downgrade it this way. GH therapy is always causal therapy. The number 1 is to remove yourself from a conflict. If the person is right in front of you, it will be a little bit hard to get yourself out of that conflict. This is causal therapy in nature. For example, if a dog passes by a home and he was abused by a person from that home, that dog will no longer pass that route to go near that house. But for us humans, it's more complicated. We go home to where the conflict was born. And so the conflict keeps relapsing and relapsing. And as children, we have no choice but to go back to that home. However, if you do have choice, the number 1 therapy is to remove yourself from that conflict. The first line of defense and protection from a conflict is to extricate yourself from the conflict and to avoid it by all means. If you can't, then you can try to change your attitude, perception, or belief around the event. You could also see it in a realistic light. Often, when we have some sort of objectivity around the event, we can just reframe it. We can also resolve it in real life. Reconcile with this person, quit your job, sell the property, something like that. Resolve it in real life. And when you know that you really resolve the conflict is when you can just talk about it and laugh about it and say, oh my gosh, it's so silly. Why did I think that? When you know that the conflict can never happen again, oh, I'm already out of the country. I no longer have to see that country again. or I will never encounter this person anymore because they have transitioned or passed away. I will never encounter that office ever again. You can be objective about it. You can take action and work on your mindset and beliefs immediately. And finally, what I wanted to impart is that let's all live biologically. Just like Dr. Hammer said, if we lived with nature, in nature, and from nature, we will be better off, as going against it will never work. If you fight nature, you will lose. So let's just harness nature's laws. Click on these QR codes to start your free exploration of Germanische Heilkunde, formerly known as GNM or German New Medicine or Germanic New Medicine. One of them is Learning GNM from Carolyn Marcolin, where I started my rabbit hole dive into Germanische Heilkunde. And the other is from a colleague, Ingmar Markart. Disease is different. There is a Senseful Biological Special Program Atlas by Bjorn Eibel, and also a free download of his book, which is also incidentally on my website, GHKPH. Please support the official website for the books and resources from Amici de Dirk Publishing House. Some books are in English. And again, I want to thank you for your attention during this talk. As a human potential coach, I want to tell you one thing. The body is the most badass machine you'll ever find in the cosmos. You have superpowers you haven't harnessed, and I am here to teach them to you. But first, you need to understand and believe nature's loving intention to keep all species not just surviving, but thriving. Join me as we fix broken health paradigms and build a better future for our children where we don't fear or hate the body, but understand and work with it, and where all families are intact, nested in each other's care, tending to all of nature because we understand the nurture that all life requires in order to flourish. Thank you for being present on this amazing journey.